Hey, I'm Dean Blandino. That's Mike Pereira. Another segment of Last Call. A lot to talk about. Let's start in the city of brotherly love. And where else would Tom Brady get that kind of treatment, that kind of pampering? Hearthstone Punching Bag didn't like it. NFL at Dean Blandino, at Mike Pereira. Everyone's talking about how the ref stepped in on a still live play, but nobody, all caps, nobody is talking about the forearm shot Brady throws to Barnett's head. Any other player in the NFL does that and is ejected without a second thought, but not Teflon Brady. I don't know about all that, Mike, but what happened on this play? This was unusual to say the least.
Well, it is, and just because of the focus it got on TV, but it's a pick, it's an interception, right? So when you throw an interception as a quarterback, you are considered not only defenseless, you can't be blocked if you pursue the play. You basically have freedom to stand there and almost do nothing. And in this particular case, there was just a fake move that way and a grab of the jersey, and they wouldn't let go of a little bit of an elbow, a little flipper there. It's kind of a bizarre play, and people are saying it's Tom Brady. I mean, should a referee step in while play's still going on? I mean, I'm in the court of saying absolutely he should. It's preventative officiating. I know when I was on the field, if you had action between two players away from the play and you as an official weren't involved in making the decision or making the call, you always stepped in between them and tried to get it stopped. I mean, that's just the nature of the way that you officiate. And should there be a foul for the forearm when he had to grab that? No, come on. And I think it's this whole thing that I'm sick of. It's protecting Tom Brady. It's Teflon Tom. Get over that stuff, would you please? I mean, there is nothing in officiating in any official that they're out to protect any one player or any one team. It's one of the great myths, like the makeup call. Nobody's trying to protect any particular individual. That's the way I feel about it.
No, well, I agree with that last point. I just think it's a little bit of a slippery slope. I think look, preventative officiating is great. Anytime you can prevent something from escalating, and they do it in other areas, right? You'll warn a tackle, an offensive lineman to get up on the line. You'll warn players when you see something that starts to get to the edge. This, to me, though, it gets a little bit, I think you got to be careful because, look, Brady can be blocked if he's pursuing the play. You're right. If he just stands there and does nothing, he can't be unnecessarily contacted. It didn't look like Barnett was really roughing him up in any way. He actually just kind of stood. They put their hands on each other. There's no forearm shot from Brady. They're just kind of locked up. To me, as the official, I would tell Clay Martin, hey, you got to watch that. You have to be aware if anything happens, because if Brady just stands there, he can't be knocked to the ground or unnecessarily contacted. But I would just avoid getting involved in the middle of the play, because now you're breaking it up. Now the defender who intercepted the pass, he's coming down the sideline. Brady comes in. Now he's potentially a tackler. So I would just say, look, it's a great job in terms of preventative officiating. You want to keep that in mind. I would just be careful about during the play when a player is a potential participant getting too involved. And it does, it's just, the hard part is the perception, right? It's Tom Brady. And now everyone's going to sit there and, like you said, say Tom Brady gets special treatment. And Tom Brady, that's not the case. Officials don't go into games and saying, well, we got number 12 this week, so, we got to make sure we protect him more than we would protect any other quarterback or any other player in the league. And officials don't do that. And but again, it's just an unusual situation. And again, you're on prime time, so there was a camera focusing on it, and maybe if there hadn't been a camera focusing on it, we're not talking about it.
Well, there wouldn't be, but again, I'd say after being on the field for so many years, you do that naturally as an official. If it's not involved in the play, you do it naturally. I mean, I know that, when you talk about preventative, you're absolutely right. I mean, you'll tell people when they're lining up, you'll tell a wide receiver, you'll tell him to move up if he's supposed to be up on the line of scrimmage. There are a lot of instances in preventative officiating, and this to me was a normal one. And maybe one of these days, what we ought to do? We ought to do a feature on Last Call of the myths the myths in officiating, like the makeup call and those types of things, protecting an individual player.
We could do, yeah. One of the myths was that you were a good on-field official. That's a myth we could certainly dispel as well.
I mean, what official ever went from the field in 2 years directly into the office and ended up to be the head officiator?
I beat that.
Unparalleled by anybody. I mean, unparalleled by any official. Hey, let's move on. You were actually in the studios. I wasn't when this whole thing with Tennessee happened, and the fans started throwing things on the field, and let's talk about that. And you know, I mean, I experienced that. You were there, obviously, in the officiating department in Bottlegate that we had in Cleveland. But you know, go talk about what happened and what can be done in the Tennessee situation.
And I think, you know, there's some of it, we look at it and it's kind of funny, Lane Kiffin catching a water bottle and doing all that, but it's actually, it's not funny, right? It's a serious deal. You know, I remember being at a game at the old Giants Stadium, and it was a snow game, and fans were throwing ice balls onto the field. People were getting hit. It's dangerous. People going to games. If you bring a golf ball to a football game, what are you planning to do with that golf ball? Are you going to go hit some, you're the golfer. What are you going to go putt somewhere in the parking lot? No, you're getting ready to use that golf ball and to throw it on the field, which is not something that we want to be doing. That game was delayed. That's certainly a dangerous situation. And each individual in the college game, each conference, they have rules for fan behavior. They have rules. Teams, schools are fine. You have situations when the fans rush the field after the game. That's a great visual, right? You get a big win against an arch rival. It's a great visual, but it's actually a dangerous situation. And we had a situation in the Iowa-Penn State game where the fans rushed the field and one of the officials actually got hit and had to go to the hospital after the game. This is something that's serious, and we have to certainly address it. And schools are fine. The conference will fine when fans rush the field. And I would imagine this would be a situation. We know there's a lot of emotion with Lane Kiffin coming back and having coached at Tennessee, and Lane being kind of a lightning rod and a controversial figure to some extent. But again, to be throwing things on the field, it's just dangerous. And I think we got to get a handle on it, because it's so great to have the fans back. Nobody wants to go back to 2020, but we got to keep everybody safe.
And it's a shame because, you know, again, if you look at the situation, I mean, there were things thrown on the field by about 20 people out of 70,000 or however many people there are there. And you hate to penalize everybody that's there. I mean, somebody suggested to me they ought to suspend the fans. They can't come for the next home game. That would be insane to penalize everybody. But again, you know, Armin Turgeon back in the old days of the NFL got hit by a whiskey bottle and got knocked out that was thrown from the stand. So there's unbelievable danger. And let's remember the Bottlegate situation in Cleveland involved a replay thing when it was, you know, did the challenge or the stoppage, the review come after the ball was next snap. And it was the barrage. If you thought what was bad in Tennessee, what happened in Cleveland was 10 times worse. And Terry McAuley ended the game and took the officials to the locker room. And then we had to bring him back out because the referee doesn't have the authority, did not have the authority, still does not have the authority to end the game without the commissioner's consent. So ridiculously, we had to bring the players out and the officials back out for kneel downs. And that was the thing. But what could you do in college in terms of ending the game, you know, at that point if you didn't feel it was safe?
Well, I think you could certainly suspend the game, and then it comes into the game management. Like I said, each conference has different policies. You want to keep everybody safe, get everybody off the playing field, that type of thing. And ultimately, it comes down to, you know, what type of penalties after the fact. To say that you're going to have an empty stadium and penalize 70,000 people for just a couple of bad actors, that doesn't seem fair either. But I do think the conference, the NCAA, has to look at this to say, when you do have a situation like this, can the referee end the game? Can we take the teams? Because that game was still, the game in Cleveland was over from a competitive standpoint. The game in Tennessee was not over. Tennessee was going to get the ball back. It was still a one-score game. So what do you do in a situation like that? I still think safety has to supersede anything else. And again, it's just a situation we don't want to see repeat going forward.
The rule book is pretty clear when it says, in terms of once the game is started, that the referee, in communication and agreement with both head coaches, could actually stop the game. If you have weather issues before the game, right, Dean, the referee can actually shorten the game, can shorten the periods. They all have to be the same, but instead of 12, if they knew there was a big storm coming, they could shorten them to 8 each. But once the game started, theoretically you could with the agreement of both coaches in the game. But that was a unbelievable situation.
Let's move back to the NFL. Seattle and primetime, crazy things happen. It's just every time Seattle's in primetime, I hold my breath because I think back to the Hail Mary. I think back to an illegal bat against Detroit in the end zone that wasn't called. There's always seems to be something. And we had the Steelers in Seattle and Big Ben. Shannon Sharp, our colleague at Fox Sports, says that's a fumble. Tuck rule doesn't exist anymore. That should be Seattle's football. Big play involving the Steelers. Ruled a pass on the field, went to review. Mike, what did you see on that one?
Shannon Sharp, does he tweet all the time or what? I mean, it seems like every week got one of his tweets on here. Hey, look, to me, it's a fumble. I mean, we hit this fine line here, and Terry McAulay kept talking about the point of the ball being down when it came out of his hands. To me, the intent was no longer to pass the ball. And so I kind of wondered myself what took so long, but I know that, that you get in the situation, was the hand still moving forward when the ball came out of his hand? But, if we go back to the Tuck play that we had in New England, obviously the Tom Brady play, it was Tom Brady. So we're going to protect Tom Brady and make it an incomplete pass. But the change under your leadership when you were ahead of the program basically said that once you start to bring the ball right back towards your body, which means back down, and it comes loose, it is what it is. And that's what I like. It is what it is. It's a fumble. You didn't have to take it all the way back to the body like you used to in the 2001 Tuck play game at New England. Now it's just to bring it back down. And so I was fine with that being a fumble, because to me, that's the old 50 drunks in a bar again. If you asked all 50, I think they'd say that was a fumble.
Yeah, I agree that was a fumble. It's a good illustration of the current rule compared to the old rule. And it's in line with the college rule, very similar. Once the hand starts forward with control, that starts a forward pass. And it's a pass until he starts to bring the ball back down toward his body. And I thought that's what Ben was doing. And Ben, he's an interesting, you have to watch him because he likes to pump, the pump fake quite a bit. And I think that's what he was trying to do. And then he tried to bring it back, and you can see him trying to bring the ball back down. And he's taking that offhand and trying to control it with the offhand, similar to what Brady did back in the Tuck game. And it was a fumble, and it's, look, all these plays that go to review are close, and it always feels, when you're in it and you're making those decisions, the time goes very quickly. When you're on the outside looking in, it feels like forever. So it did feel a little long, but ultimately I felt that was the right decision. And this rule, changing that rule, it really is one of those rules that has become more of a replay rule. The old Tuck rule was there so that the on-field official, the referee, in most instances had a bright line, right? It was a pass until he got the ball all the way back into his body, and they could officiate that. Now we bring in replay. Now you have slow motion. Now you have the ability to look at it again. So it made sense then to say, okay, most of these are going to review. Let's make the rule, let's make it what it is, and we could always fix it in replay, and we don't need the bright line because we do have a backup in replay. So, but again, I thought it was the right call.
And let's just for a second touch on the end of the game too, because that was such chaos at the end of the game, and people are talking about that play and replay. And you and I talked a little bit ago, that replay official got put right in the middle on that last play. He had to make a decision as to whether or not to stop the game, whether or not, most importantly, that he thought they were going to get another play off, because there was question in his mind, right, as to whether maybe there was a foot on the sideline when the catch was made. It was chaos, but in reality, Pittsburgh really doesn't have any gripes, right? I mean, in reality, they're going to get a snap off anyways, because it was clear when he spiked the ball that there was still a second left on the clock.
Yeah, I thought from an operational standpoint, the replay, if you have a doubt in your mind and it was the catch, right? Metcalf makes the catch and then he gets hit, he fumbles. And at least from what I saw, I think they thought that maybe his second foot hit the sideline. So that would be a big deal, because it would be an incomplete pass. You'd reset the clock. You'd go back to the previous spot. Obviously, they need a field goal. So if you have a doubt in your mind, you have to wait to see if the offense is going to get lined up legally with time remaining on the clock. And if they do, at that point, you have to notify the on-field crew that you're stopping the game to review it. And it did. Again, I don't think that Pittsburgh got disadvantaged in any way, because when they did spike it, there was 1 second on the clock. So they're getting another snap either way. And I don't think 3 or 1 second makes a difference in what ultimately occurred. But that's a tough one. That's a tough one, because you want to look at a replay. But if you look at a replay, now you take your eyes off the field. Now you could get lost, and you're not sure are they legally lined up? That's a tough deal. And I thought once you make the decision to stop the game, it was definitely handled correctly.
1 second, though. It's 1 second. Had that spike, had there been no time left on the clock when that ball hit the ground on the spike, then with the fact that you stopped it, then you would have put the 3 seconds back on, and without reversal would created a huge advantage for Seattle. So in a way, they're a bit lucky, or maybe they're just that good. I don't know.
Maybe they are, but that's Seattle in prime time. Like I said, something crazy always happens.
So that's last call. There's no more this week from Dean Blandino. That's him. I'm Mike Pereira. We will talk to you next week.